Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between, because, 2020, gender roles and stuff. Anywho, how you guys doing? It's your boy here, the insane gay manic, anime fan extraordinaire, Pokemon King! Be a little extra, I apologize. So, because of the current situation of our country, or actually of our world is what I really should be saying, there aren't episodes to review, but I still had a couple videos I wanted to put out, and it was a video I had been wanting to do years ago, but I never really got to, and it kind of fell out of, topical importance, even though it's still technically relevant today, as I've been learning over the past couple of days. So, if anyone remembers, Funimation, I used to be someone who very much was a champion for supporting the industry by buying box sets or watching off of legal streaming sites or buying manga, that kind of stuff. And it's not that I don't still necessarily believe in that, but I'm also realistic that, people are going to do whatever the fuck they want anyway. It's up to the company's job to make their shit enticing enough. The people pay for Spotify, people pay for Pandora, people pay for Netflix, people pay for Hulu. A lot of this shit, you could easily go and steal episodes for, but a lot of people pay for it. And why? Because they're providing you something that you can't just normally get. Primarily, it's usually in the form of, convenience. That's, the main thing. Streaming sites have gotten to the point where they're just more convenient than, going to illegal sites, because you still have to deal with ads. You still have to deal with that whole you're not a robot shit, and you run the risk of dealing with some shit you don't want to deal with. And also, half of the features the illegal sites have, now the legit sites have. So that's the way you fight it, is that you become either just as good or better than your competitors. But what we're really talking about, that's actually another video I want to do. But the reason why I bring this up is because, if anyone remembers, Funimation's gone through a hell of a transition since the last time I've really, seriously in-depth talked about them. They're now owned by Sony, which means if you go on there, you actually get a mix of not only their stuff, but, the Aniplex catalog, because for those who don't know, Aniplex is owned by Sony. So you can actually watch Bakemonogatari on Funimation's app. Kind of fucking crazy to me. And, of course, they're still doing their dubs. But then you had the stuff with Vic Mignogna that happened. And another incident that came about that I didn't really get to cover because I just had other things I was doing. So, I want anyone from Funimation to watch this to understand this is not coming from the perspective of someone who doesn't actively support your dubs. I've been buying your shit for years. I want that to be stated. And for those who know me, you know I have. I own the majority. You can look behind me. There's a bunch of fucking One Piece. I have the original Voyages. I have from 2007, I think, 7 or 8. I have the original Voyages for One Piece and the fucking collections and Tenchi Muyo and Cowboy Bebop and even some of the modern shit like Bento and Haganai and fucking hell. Actually, one of the subjects of today's video, Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid. I own a lot of shit from you guys, so I want it to be stated before moving forward. This is not coming from a guy who does not support you or has not supported you. But the one thing that is absolutely pissing me off is that you guys have gotten, I don't know if you've gotten too big for your britches or you have forgotten the main problem, the main thing we come to you for. You are not a necessity. I want that to be stated because for a while, I used to view you as a necessity, and realistically, you should have never been viewed as a necessity. But I need you to understand something. You are a middleman. That is what Funimation is. You are a glorified middleman. You are a way for Americans to get access to Japanese-related material with also an English translation for those who have no interest in subtitles and reading subtitles and shit. But you are not necessary to enjoy that material. You are probably the biggest of the dubbing companies, but you are not necessary. The reason why I'm saying this is because for some fucking reason, you feel the need to take a product and put your own agenda in it and present it to the public. And that shit bothers me because that's not what the fuck I subscribe to this shit for. I don't buy a Sekirei box set or a fucking Dragon Main box set so you can sit there and throw out jokes about current politics. And what makes me angrier is that you're doing it with shows that have no relevance with it. It's not like you're talking about a political show or a show that's about sexism and feminism. No, you're doing it on a fucking show which premise is a dragon girl fell in love with a human girl and like now dragons and humans are interacting on more personal levels. This shit ain't got shit to do with politics, but you still gotta make a fucking line about men or male privilege or fucking how or anti-gay agendas and shit. And it frustrates me because this is entertainment. Now, to give context of what I'm referring to, Funimation over the years, and from what I understand, still are doing it, and I'll try to put up as much like proof as I can find. They've been constantly changing, not constantly, but they've been subtly changing dub lines throughout multiple different animes to kind of push a certain agenda. They did it in My Girlfriend's a Gal. They did it. I've heard they've done it in Yuri on Ice, but I didn't follow that show. But I've heard from people. I heard they're currently doing it with some of their other current simuldubs, and they did it with Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid being one of the bigger offenders. Like they've been in, I want to say Prison School, but I'm not sure. But they've been subtly throwing in this weird fucking like SJW agenda, like little shots in their lines. And people need to understand the difference between a localization and then just changing a line. Localization is something, and primarily in anime, it only really happens mostly in comedy shows, and I'll explain why. The point of localization is to take a phrase or a word or whatever the fuck it is, like a line of dialogue that does not work in English. Usually it's something that's like a joke of some sort. That's why I say comedies tend to have it the most. Because there are certain jokes in Japan that don't work in America because Americans aren't aware of those Japanese figures, or because the Japanese language, certain jokes make sense because it's based off of a pun off of a Japanese word. Like for example, if you look at Zoro's techniques in One Piece, Zoro's techniques you could technically translate out to English. And hell, the English dub of One Piece, when Sanji had his fight versus Kurobi in the original dub, like the first shot of the dub, they translated his attacks out. Instead of saying like party table, kick course, or mutton shot, they literally translated it out to what it actually was, which was like face, back, neck shots, all those things. But in Zoro's case, his is all like puns on like Japanese food. A lot of his, at least his old school attacks, I'm not sure about his new ones, but I know his old school attacks are very much like references to like, were like puns on Japanese foods. That joke doesn't work in America because Americans aren't familiar with that. So what did Funimation decide to do? For one, they changed Sanji attack names back once we got later on into the series. And Zoro, they just left it. He just says onigiri in English and Japanese. There are just certain jokes, like Sergeant Frog has a bunch of changes. Things like Gintama had changes when they fucked around with the dub because certain jokes just don't work. So you have to change it so it still hits the same flow as the original scene. Localization, that's fine as long as you're not back. The difference between what they're doing with like Kobayashi's Dragon Maid and what they did with My Girlfriend's a Gal by introducing their little politics is the difference is that the line that they were changing in shows like fucking One Piece or whatever were lines that legit or something like in Gintama, which I do know Gintama is Sentai technically. All right. Don't get on semantics with me, goddammit. When they were changing those lines, like the comedy lines, it was primarily due to the fact that there was no way to translate it out straight and it still be funny in English. So you had to do something to it. That's perfectly fine. The issue here is that they're taking fucking lines from Kobayashi that's like basic normal retorts and then adding in this like SJW or like overly heterosexual feel to a character, which people would think, oh, what's the problem with that? Well, here's the first thing. There are a lot of anime fans who only watch dubs. Granted, there are less of those now than there used to be. But the point is, a lot of people were introduced to anime through dubs. And one of the worst things I think is that you can completely change a character's motive. Like the Kobayashi one is the worst one. It's like episode 1 where, oh God, what's her name? Oh, fuck. It's like, oh, I can't, Toru, I think it is. Toru, isn't it? Yeah, Toru. It took me a minute because it's been a minute since I watched the anime. When Toru was confessing her love to Miss Kobayashi, in the Japanese version, it's like a dialogue back and forth of like how I'm in love with you, but I'm a woman. I don't care. I love you anyway. Whereas in the dub, it goes like, she goes, I love you, or something along those lines. And she goes like, I'm not into women or dragons. And I'm like, well, what the fuck? Why even put that in there? It also seems contradictory because, as anyone who watched the show knows, over the course of the anime, she kind of sort of returns Toru's advances to a degree as the series goes on. So some of those lines don't make any fucking sense. You'd be surprised those subtle line changes could fuck up an entire mood of a show. Hence why don't do it. Granted, I have my own problems with the Kobayashi dub, the Dragon Maid dub in general, which is a few things. I think I mentioned a couple of them. One of them is like Lakoa's English dub voice I can't stand because they made her a valley girl, even though in the Japanese version it's clearly she's meant to be like this motherly character. She's kind of ditzy as a mom, but she's definitely not meant to be like this fucking blonde bimbo valley girl that the fucking dub portrays her to be. I also hate characters who have lisps. I can't even pronounce it. I can't say it right because it doesn't sound right. But the Lisp. It's like you have the, actually they do it with Mineta in My Hero Academia's dub too. Can't stand that shit. So I have my problems with dub in general. But I'm saying when you start fucking with lines, that means fans who are introduced to it will get a completely different perception, especially depending on how important the line is. Like you would think, oh, that's episode 1, that's a throwaway line. Which, to be fair, it is, considering everything else in the show contradicts the line. But then, if anything, the dub fan would either go online and act like they know about the show and then say something stupid, and it's not their fault. It's because the fucking dub is presenting shit that you shouldn't be presenting. Or in fucking like my girlfriend's a gal, they did the same thing. And what pisses me off is, one, you're doing it in, like, here's my thing. There's an avenue for fans of the person who believes in that shit to be a fan of that person. We're in the age and era now that you can be a part of a company and you can still have a fan base. What I mean, and just to give a little bit more detail, what I mean when I say that, is like, I can be a fan of Colleen Clinkenbeard as a voice actress and not be a fan of her as a person. Because those are two different things. I can respect you as a voice actor, and then I can respect you as a writer or respect you as a person, right? I have the right to do that. So if I give a fuck about your agenda and how you feel about XXX topic, I will go to your personal pages, Facebook, Twitter, IMDb, wherever the fuck, and look that shit up. But when I buy a motherfucking box set, when I sit here and spend $40 or fucking $50 on a goddamn box set with 13 fucking episodes in it, I don't buy that shit for you to push a fucking agenda, alright? That is irrelevant. I don't give a fuck what your feelings are. Because if you don't like the shit that you're writing for, don't fucking write for it. And regardless of which, your job is to provide a translation for the writers then to localize and then present as a dub. Do not sit there and fucking push this dumbass agenda that no one wants to hear in a show about cute girls that are dragons interacting with other cute girls. No one gives not in that show. Like, that's what pisses me off. This seems to happen in like ecchi/fan service shows, or shows that like are more focused on like the character interactions than they are about like the overall plot, because they usually take place in like normal everyday society. Why are these the shows? Well, part of the reason why is because it's easier to sneak it in and it work in terms of commentary. The other reason is probably because those are the shows motherfuckers want to state a fucking claim in. And you're like, and here's my thing. I don't care if you add a joke or two when it makes sense. When the joke is so Japanese, it wouldn't work in English. That's fine. That's localization. I get it. That's not what the fuck this is. I think there's another scene in Dragon Maid where like, I think it's the beach episode where like Toru's talking to Lakoa and Lakoa's like finally wearing an outfit that looks a little better, and then like in the dub they gave her this like overly exaggerated like, yeah, I was tired of the patriarchal men harassing me about my sexuality as a woman. And I'm like, bitch, she doesn't say anything to this degree. It also doesn't even make sense for her character to say anything like this. Because Lukoa is very much a character who fucking doesn't think about any of that shit. Doesn't give a fuck about any. She wouldn't even bring it up in the conversation. So it's like that already doesn't sound in place in general. And then I think Toa's reaction in English is something like, well, they'll start up again later. They'll start up again soon. And it's like, bitch. And look, here's my thing. Regardless of my opinions on like feminism and SJWs and all that other shit, that's not the fucking point. The point is, I paid you money for a translation, dub, and sub of a fucking show in Blu-ray or DVD fucking quality. I did not pay you to sit up here and spout your ideologies at me in the form of these little small little fucking jabs. It also takes me out of the moment because because I can fact check you so easily. That's the other thing that pisses me off. You have the sub on there, and I heard they're still doing that for some of the simulcasts. There's certain simulcast shows that they're still sneaking in these little shit, and I don't know if it's the writer or the fucking voice actresses or voice actor. I don't know who it is, but the point is, get that shit out of our shows. You already have enough problems, and granted, it's not like I agree with the fans calling in death threats. Apparently, Funimation at the time responded to a lot of this shit with like, didn't really respond to the criticism. They more responded to the people's reactions to the extremists, pretty much. They responded to the crazy ones who took it like to this extra step. But like, I feel like you should be more humble when you're in a position of like, look, Funny, your shit isn't necessary. I can go watch subs and not give a fuck about a dub. I would like a dub for these shows, but it's not going to kill me. Just so I don't have to deal with you putting in this dumbass agenda because you feel a certain way about the show, or you feel a certain way of like writing a character. Like she should be written this way. Bitch, I don't give a fuck how you feel like she should be written. You need to write her the way she was intended to be written. Yeah, written. See, that's English. It's fucking with me. The point is, you shouldn't be out here trying to push your own fucking agendas in your show. Because I'm not buying that. I can go see your cons. I can go see your like panels and shit if I give a fuck about what you have to say about certain topics. Or I go on your Twitter or whatever. I don't give a fuck about that when I'm buying a DVD or a Blu-ray, alright? And so it pisses me off that we're still doing this. And like I said, I'll try to put up as much. I should be posting like a bunch of like proof to make sure. And there are a couple videos that actually do comparisons of this shit, and it just frustrates me because because Funimation for some reason feels like motherfuckers won't just stop buying their shit. Why in the fuck you think that? I have no idea, but don't get it twisted. If I don't need to get your shit. I don't need to support that shit. I can go watch the episodes in Japanese, buy merchandising anywhere else, and you won't get a goddamn dime from me. And why? Because your writer thought it was cute to put a fucking man-hating joke or gender sexuality reversal joke in the goddamn dub that doesn't make any fucking sense and didn't need to be changed. And it's just frustrating because y'all should be better than that. But considering all the other shit that happened, like when the audio leaks of all the ridiculous shit your voice actors were saying, and then some of the shit that some of your voice actors on Twitter have been saying, which granted that one isn't as, neither of those are as huge because those don't but those are the people who represent your company, so it's like, and then the whole Vic Mignogna situation, things just got out of hand. But I just wanted to be stated, like, as a fan of, like, dubs and a fan of anime, I don't buy the show for that. I go follow Colleen Clickenbeard on Twitter, or Stephanie Young on Twitter, which I do still follow both of those people on Twitter. I follow you. If I care about your opinions on that platform, like, of you as a person, that's when I follow you. I don't fucking want to hear that shit in a dub where a character's clothes just got ripped off. That's like that's like Sekirei having lines about fucking, about women should be respected and women aren't just pieces of meat for you to oogle at. Also while like doing something very overly sexually provocative and demeaning themselves. It's like, because the animation's still the same, but the dub wants to make a completely different point. Fucking idiots. I don't buy your show for that. I just want a straightforward dub with proper localization. So it makes me angry that we're still doing this, bro. Also, if anyone, well, I won't say that because this will come out before I even ask that question. But also stay tuned because I do want to make some more American anime companies videos, and the next one I want to do is based around Crunchyroll because we got things to say and critiques that need to be made. So prepare yourselves, get a pen and paper, about to ruin somebody's day. And that video will not be sponsored by Crunchyroll, but it will probably have a Crunchyroll ad on it. Anywho, that's a game. Play to win. And I will catch you guys later, because remember, you're not having any fun if you're not going just a little bit crazy. Just a little bit crazy. Just a tiny crazy. That wasn't even English. Wasn't even fucking English.